Commercial banks in Nigeria are saddled with the responsibility of keeping in custody customers' funds. Now, but what does the financial institution do with these funds? Economic growth is very crucial, and banks have a role to play in this regard. An ex-executive director of one of the top banks with about 25 years, banking experience, now a wealth coach teaching people how to make money with little or no money, like zero money. By now you know who my guest is. I promised to bring him back on the show again. He was too good. It was popular demand. Bring him. We want to hear him again. Now he's here. Talking money, talking how to make money, but this time from a different angle. It's still the Patriot here on television Nigeria, and I remain Eva Onovu, and my guest is Francis David Okumawa. I got it right. Okay, today we are not talking how to make money. We're looking at a very sensitive aspect of our economy, of Nigeria, of our country. And now we're marrying patriotism to banking, to wealth. Just 2 days ago, the federal government, the vice president, attended a lecture, and he categorically said the banks have failed us, commercial banks have failed us. How did that come across to you?
Well, yes and no. Yes, because they can actually do better. Yes, because they are the ones that oil the wheels of progress in any society. Because credit is very, very significant in improving the lives of people in any economy. But they are not doing a lot of that now, but they also have their constraints. But I blame them more because an institution should have a way of synchronizing what is happening in this environment to ensure that at any point in time, they are giving the services that they are supposed to be giving.
Okay, I might not be a bank expert, but one thing I know is most of our institutions are really not gotten from the way we are cultured. Now, the kind of banking reforms or the kind of a banking culture we have in Nigeria, is it tailor-made to our kind of spending cultures, who Nigerians really are, or is it a borrowed system?
Well, borrowed system, but not well borrowed.
Where are we borrowing from?
We are borrowing from England, the colonial masters again, how it started. Now, one of the biggest things that banks live with is trust. The trust and the credibility of a system. There must be a system around the bank to make the banks function well. For instance, in the civilized environment, you have what we call SIN number. Everybody has a number. If you have that number, you can trace the person to his hometown and everywhere and everything about the person. And if you want to actually get the person, you can actually stifle the person from doing any other business if he's owing you. We don't have that system in Nigeria where you can actually monitor those things. Now, credit is something everybody needs to protect themselves in order to get the monies they give out. If you give out monies and you cannot recover those monies because our legal system takes years to get them to recover the asset that they actually pledged as mortgage, then you cannot exercise mortgage. Because if you are giving out money, you want to be able to get the money out.
True.
So significantly, all our banks, majority of our banks, are lending to only government that is safe to lend to.
Okay, before we talk about loans, mortgage, business loans, and all of those pluses, let's talk about the underbanked. About 40% of the Nigerian population is underbanked. That's alarming. Is it that the banks are not enough, or what exactly is the problem? People are still holding on to the old ways of digging the ground and stocking their money. They don't just believe in the system or this institution.
The banking system is too sophisticated. A lot of people are scared of going to the banking premises. It's over. I don't know how to explain it. Banks, a lot of people, the downtrodden that are not close, that cannot come to the city to actually get banking service and all that, they see the banks as for the rich people and only people that are very progressive. So they don't go there. And the recent emphasis on security and KYC and the security system on EFCC and all that has further worsened our banking opportunity, the banking space. The rich people who ordinarily put money in banks don't go to banks to put money anymore because they don't want to be tracked with the money. The BVN and the KYC principles has sort of reduced the number of people that are banking. So we have worsened our situation like on the past.
You're sounding like all is lost. Like all is lost. Let's take it a chunk at a time. Now, this underbanked persons, you said the bank is too sort of sophisticated. What does that mean?
You see, your mother, my grandfather, our parents in the village, when they make money, they are scared of walking to the bank because the environment is too sophisticated. The people that are working there, they look too English.
Should they
in their
use
disposition.
bamboo trees or something to make it?
If you are somebody that has 1,000, you want to go and put 1,000 in the bank, and you go there and you see rich people walking around,
But we still have
you'll be intimidated.
We still have those Esusu guys who have turned it to bank, and that's still a form of banking.
That is very personal. They see them, they know them. They don't dress with suits and look sophisticated. The ordinary man on the street sees the bank as too sophisticated for them. And the microfinance banks they created, a lot of them did a lot of mismatches in their approach of giving monies out and had problems with managing their liquidity, and a lot of them had problems meeting their obligations. So the credibility of those microfinance banks are lost. But we'll have been able to trap a lot of these unbanked populists through the microfinance segment. But that we have a lot of credibility issues on who is good, who is credible, and who is not credible.
Okay, so now let's go to these investors who drop in heavy, and when they want to return, they give out this bank on single digits. When they want to go back and collect it, sometimes you have hefty profits, like where the banks want this money back. What is the issue with those?
The truth about it is that Nigerian banks today bank government. They take the money from the public. They don't let the money circulate in the economy so that people can, because when you put money in the bank, people borrow the money and use the money and put the money back, and it goes round and round. It affects the economy. The Nigerian banking industry today, because of the profitability and the security of borrowing to government, they abandon the public, and what they do now is whatever they get from the public, they take back to CBN. And the interest rate on government lending is double digit. So they take the money at their cost of fund is less than 5%, and they place those monies with CBN at very high rates. So they don't need to go through the risk of giving loans to people who you are not sure you can recover the monies. For example, the legal system, if they take properties, for instance, from people who are borrowing money, they cannot realize those properties in record time. So the incentive to actually give money to people is not there. There are three things you can use to secure loans. Not like in a civilized environment where you can use your certificate to actually use as security to borrow money to go to school. In Nigeria, you use properties, you use stock, you also use things like transactions. Now in civilized environment, people are moving from collateralized banking, where you actually put the security in place, like a house, stocks and all that. In Nigeria, the banks don't even want to touch the stocks anymore because of the experience they had with the fall in the stock market.
Yeah.
The properties are a lot undervalued. Majority of the properties are properties inherited and don't have proper documentation. Getting the documentation with C04 and all that is a uphill task. And most of the properties, like if you look at Abuja for instance, most of the properties are overvalued. When you are buying those properties, it's very expensive. When you are building, very expensive. But when you want to sell, you can't get people to buy. So why will a bank want to take a property that they cannot realize the money that they give out? So today, as I speak to you, the banks have actually severed lending activities to the public. In civilized environment, if you are working and earn salary, you can own a house. Because you can actually buy a house with your rent. You can imagine if people can buy houses with their rent in Nigeria. Almost everybody will be a landlord.
Very true.
But we don't have it in Nigeria yet. You cannot own a house with your rent in Nigeria yet. Mortgage is the biggest loan in civilized environment. It's the lowest amount of loan that we have in our system. Now let me tell you what the banking system is going through. There is tight liquidity in the banking industry.
Before we get to where we're going to, let's get to accounting 101. What are the traditional rules of banking? And where are we at right now?
Simple. Banks are supposed to take money from people because it's a safe haven. So people are comfortable putting their monies in the bank, saving the money in the bank. Now when these people keep these monies in the bank, people who have need to improve their economies and do some transactions and do business and all that can actually approach the bank to borrow money.
True.
So the bank takes money for safekeeping. They also give monies out to help people improve their business and do lending activities that they can make them buy houses and all that. The other thing is for payment, to be able to pay monies from one person to another person. Those are the traditional rules of banks.
Okay.
But today it's distorted. The major thing they do is come give us money. Come give us money. That's what we hear. Open account. They have an electronic system that they use to actually get people to get money. The payment system has improved significantly. But what of lending? Lending is almost zero in the economy. And when you have lending zero, that is why we had recession. Government is the biggest spender, is the biggest borrower. But the money it saves, it keeps in CBN. It does not allow the bank system to receive it. So how will you improve the economic activities with lending that actually creates multiplier effects on what goes on in the economy? So we are not lending, and that's the problem we have in the country today. People cannot lend to improve their business.
All right, so let's talk about the impact. Okay. Clearly, you've said that we have moved away. The traditional rules are actually now effective. They've gathered this money. They now have better ways of using the electronic system to gather these monies, and they are doing it very well. But when it comes to giving back, their social responsibility
is zero.
That's zero, especially when it has to do with the ordinary man. Now, are they still effective? Do we still need these guys?
You see, we have regulators. Ordinarily, government is supposed to regulate every industry. We have that. Central Bank of Nigeria is there to regulate them. They see all the ratios, their liquidity ratios, and their risk, the composition of risk assets in their portfolio and all that. But I don't know whether they have closed their eyes to their role, what the role they are supposed to play. I don't know whether they've closed their eyes to it.
Do you think the banks are politicized already?
I think there's politics, because bank owners in the past, most of the major loans were taken by them. AMCON came and took out a lot of bad loans from the system. We thought it would improve the liquidity in the system. Just when we're thinking that, things will start improving now, banks will have no option but to lend out. Government took out government funds from the system and took to CBN with this new system of TSA. So the liquidity in the system was taken out again. Then coupled with the fact that the oil and the exchange rate, the effect of the exchange rate movement also affected a lot of the banks who had exposure offshore with LCs that they have established, letters of credit that they've established. That took out a lot of liquidity from the system again, because exchange rate moved phenomenally to almost 400 to the dollar. So that took out a lot of liquidity from the system again. So what they use AMCOM to solve, CBN has taken those monies again with TSA. So the banks have their own constraint. They don't have liquidity to actually give out to the public. So what they do is they take the few that we have in the system and starve the system of more monies and take to CBN. So the only person that is enjoying banking in Nigeria today is government.
All right, when we are back from the short break, we're about to be back. We're going to tell you the way forward. It looks like there is no hope. It looks like we don't need these guys around. It looks like we need to get back to our traditional system of keeping monies, but that's not the way forward. Civilization must happen. Globalization has come to stay. Banks must get better because we all must be patriotic, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going on a short break. We're right back. Francis Okumaba will still be in your screen, and I'll be there definitely to bring the answers to the questions you have in mind. Thank you. It's always my pleasure to have you back. We're discussing banking and patriotism with Francis David Okumaba. And before we went on the break, we talked about traditional banking system. We talked about the culture of Nigeria's banking system. Was it borrowed? Was it raised from how we do things here? And a lot of other things. But now we want to divert a little bit. We want to look at solutions. Now, in those solutions, of course, there's a whole trail of knowledge in that. And let's look at training, the place of training. For me, banking services are great, but they can be greater. First off, I think that the staffers or the banking officers should be trained. If we talk about that, if we say that there's a gap between the unbanked and the banked, neither of these categories are happy. The unbanked are not they're not liking banks more, and the ones who are banked are running away. They seem to be trailed through the banking system. Where should the training come?
You see,
what area?
The problem is a lot of banks in the past focused on public sector banking because government money was everywhere, so all they needed to do look for deposits and put the deposit in the bank and they get promoted.
Okay.
Then the era of investment banking came and all they were doing is market people that would do investment in stocks and all that, and the whole story was stock. In all these years, banks were not training their staff. They promoted people based on the money they're able to attract and all that. Now we have people that are at the aim of affairs now in the banking industry who don't understand what a credit should be. We need to reorientate our staff in the banks to understand simple, basic wealth education skills. The era of taking deposit and telling people, oh, give me deposit, don't give me deposit, that will be sacked and all that is gone. What should be on ground now is tell me how I will make that money. Tell me how I will improve on the business that I'm doing. Tell me how you can get into a transaction and put a structure in place that will make me succeed in doing what I'm doing.
How would I help the bank?
So that, because if you show me how to make money, when I start making the money will be kept with you.
Very true.
So if you want me to be giving you money and you don't know how I make that money and you don't give me opportunity to actually express myself on how I can actually do the business better, then there's a problem. Banks should shift from collateralized banking to transactional banking. Transactional banking is bringing all the parties together. We have people who have money, we have people who have ideas, we have people who have land. A banker can sit in the middle and say, you have the money, put the money in the bank. Let's hold this money in the bank as collateral to give a bank guarantee to somebody who has land. And they start building an estate. So you'll have built an estate without necessarily borrowing money from the bank. But putting the bank in the middle creates comfort for everybody. So more money will be able to come into the system to create transaction. But if you leave it without the way the banks are running now, the man who has land cannot borrow money from the bank with his land. The man who has money does not have idea. He keeps the money with the bank. The man who is a construction company is looking for how will I have comfort that this man will pay me when they finish building the house. The bank comes in the middle as a safety net to keep the money that the people who have money are bringing. Give them returns based on what you are going to be developing the estate. I do real estate without putting one naira in it. And all I need is to put the bank in the middle, put the landowner, and put the construction company. And the bank gives comfort to everybody. I
just wanted to ask, are there clients or clients where these solutions worked?
I have built an estate without one naira in my pocket. Putting a bank, putting a landowner, and bringing a construction company, and we built an estate. And everybody is happy. Banks need to leave their comfort zone of armchair banking and begin to get into getting people on the street to show them basic wealth education skills that they can use to actually create wealth. Go into bringing people together, do collaboration when you can bring people, your customers. You have 10 customers. Everybody is not doing anything. But when you bring a rich man, you bring somebody that has land, you bring somebody together, the transaction takes place. There are a lot of things that we can do in this industry without necessarily getting money, borrowing money. But the traditional way of borrowing money, they'll tell you you need a collateral. When they come with the collateral, they'll tell you to bring a CFO. The CFO cannot get ready because it takes about 2 years to get the process with government. And at the end of the day, nothing is happening.
Okay, it amazes me that the very institution that's supposed to teach wealth has to go to the street to ask for wealth education.
Yes.
Now that aside, let's talk about the TSA. We know that the TSA has succeeded in a very huge way, taming corruption, siphoning money with impunity. Now, where has it failed? Where does it need to be tweaked?
The problem today is that TSA is a laudable initiative by government.
Okay.
It is working because there were a lot of hidden monies that government did not know that they were getting. Now they can actually see the flow of money is coming to the government purse. Now that they've achieved that, let the money go back into the commercial system, the banking system, so that it can help to create activities in lending to people and getting monies back and re-oil the wheel of liquidity in the system. That money in CBN is actually stifling the economy. That is part of what caused our recession. If that money is circulating in the system and the banking industry is able to use it, it will show in the economy because they will have no choice but to lend it out. The other downside to this is that the rate at which government lend from banks is too high. It's double digits. And that is the benchmark rate that the banks are looking at. Why would I lend to somebody outside that is risky when I can lend to government safe? Because government will always pay at the end of the maturity of the treasury bills as they borrow continuously. If that rate is a single digit, the incentive to go to government will go off and they will lend to the public. Currently, the banks are not lending to the public at all. And that's why we are all suffering. Everybody is suffering. We are not doing what we are supposed to be doing because banks are not lending.
Okay, let's talk about the legal part of banking system, the legal system for mortgage. What time, how soon is the time for court judgments to be gotten for those banks who have actually given out, they've tried, been reaching out to some persons, and how soon does this court judgment come in their favor or against them so that these things will be way forward?
That is another frustration that the banks face. Banks, if they want to give out loans, one of the only major things you can use as security is property. Now, the properties that we have, a lot of them are not bankable. For a property to be bankable, you must have C04 on the property. Now, most of the property that we have, a lot of them were bequeathed by parents to their children who are already dead. Some of the certificates, you can't find them because they did not communicate these certificates to their children. Now, we have a situation where the system, the legal system, if a customer defaults who pledges a security as a house, it takes 6 to 7 years to realize one asset back. Wow. Why will a bank want to go into the process of lending to somebody that will bring his house and I cannot get the house when he defaults? Now, to sell that property is also another problem. Somebody pledges the property in Nnewi, and at the end of the day, you want to recover the property, you get a court judgment. And you go to Nnewi, the people there tell you, come and take this house. Let's say you take this house. And you're not able to recover it. So the banks shy away from things that they can actually use to create that mortgage that we are talking about. But mortgages are the things that we really need to oil the wheels, because housing, we've not started doing housing in Nigeria. In civilized environments, 70% of the houses are apartments, 25% are townhouses, only 5% are luxury apartments. In Nigeria, it's the opposite. If you want to buy 2-bedroom flat and 1-bedroom flat today, if you want to buy 100 in Abuja, you will not get to buy. But if you want to buy 1,000 4-bedroom terrace duplex, you will have it available. It's available, nobody's buying. So there's a mismatch in so many things. And government needs to look at it from its own area view to look at how do we now solve this problem. You are seeing banking, they know that banks are not lending because CBN has the statistics with them. So if you know that banks are not lending, what are you doing about it? And if they don't lend to affect the economy, they know there's recession in the economy. How do we oil the wheels of the economy if there's no lending activity? They know housing is a big problem in Nigeria. How can we have housing if there's no mortgage system? They know that in a civilized environment, if you can pay rent, you can become a landlord. Why can't people use rent to become landlord in Nigeria? They know that if you are in a civilized environment, if you can actually earn money, you can borrow money against what you are lending. You can also use insurance to insure risk of losing money. So these banks talking about risk. There are risks that can be mitigated. And in any case, there's a measure of risk that you can also take. But they are not taking any risk at all. They put all the money back in CBN. And government wants the economy to do well. So you are giving government the money, you collect money from the poor people and take it and put it in CBN. And CBN does nothing with the money is there in CBN.
All right, if you've just joined us, this is the Patriot here on television, Nigerian, and you will ask, where do banking and patriotism meet. But if you listen to my guest very well, you see he's a very patriotic and passionate, that's the word, Nigerian, who has taken time, or is taking time to carve a niche for himself in wealth creation. And he's not just keeping that knowledge stingily to himself, he's willing to share. And this is one of the platforms with which you could hear these things and get richly blessed, and put it that way like a pastor will. Okay, let's talk something else. Yes, solution. These are solutions we're still proffering. Let's talk about bank operations. Right now you talked about collateral and all of those. You mentioned something transactional. We should move from the collateral style to transaction. That's talking to the banking system. You mentioned that in other climes we have things like your certificate could get your loan.
Yeah.
Your other things too. You mentioned there. I want you to explain what those are, how that can happen. There could be one or two persons who are policymakers in the banking sector who's listening and who might want to try this out.
You see, collateralized banking is almost dying.
Okay.
Because they're not taking stocks. They are scared of taking stocks now because of what has happened in the stock market. They create so much weight to stocks that you cannot use stocks to borrow money. Now, the other available asset you can use to actually create these assets that you're talking about, most of them are not bankable because you cannot realize the money. So how do we go forward? A bank that's innovative, who wants to actually move with what is happening in the environment, should start looking at transactional banking. Put yourself in the transaction, create a safety net in transaction, and create a lot of collaboration opportunities for a lot of banks. Now, banks need to go back to the drawing table and bring their officers to bank and re-kit them. Train your officers to understand what wealth is, how wealth can be created. If they know how wealth can be created, they will impact on society. They will go out and get into the cities and all that. The other thing that they must do is that they should demystify the hype that we have in the banking industry. I think we have overhyped ourselves in the banking industry.
How do you mean?
Overhyped. If you go to a civilized environment, if you are a school set holder, you can work in a bank. With electronic banking and all that, you don't need to pay all the salaries that we are paying to bankers. Because if you want to get bankers at that level, they must be bankers that can interpret the banking.
Tell me about
They must be bankers that can actually impact on society, on teaching people how they can create transactions that are safe and they are bankable. But now we have banking officers that cannot even put transactions together. They don't know how to write credit because they rose through the rank, getting to those positions with deposit mobilization, getting deposits from government. Once you know an uncle and the uncle has access to government and all that, they give you deposits, you are promoted. Before you know it, you are executive director of the bank. But at the end of the day, a customer comes to you and says, I have a transaction. Government has given me a contract. I want to execute this contract, I don't have money. A banker should be able to stand and say, okay, let's put the people together. Government is going to pay the money, let them pay the money to me.
Okay.
And when you execute the contract, I want to know who is going to execute the contract. Bring the person that will execute the contract, will pay the person directly. Now, go and do the job, and this other person, let the person that's going to pay for the contract pay to the bank. And at the end of the day, get an insurance. And get the insurance company to ensure that there's no gap. If there's any gap, you insure the gap so that if there's any risk, the insurance will kick in. Once you do that, you have solved the problem. Meaning that there's a product already that you can use to start funding people that are doing contracts. There are a lot of people who have contracts who cannot execute the contract because banks will not give them the loan. But if we have officers that are well kitted, that are well trained, they will sit in the middle and create positioning that will make that transaction happen. Every transaction can be banked. It depends on the understanding of the banker and understanding of risk and how to mitigate against the risk. Now, what we don't have in Nigeria today is we have clerical officers as bankers who don't understand what banking is, who don't understand what wealth creation is, and how things can actually impact on them and all that. I have a school for bankers where they can actually come, learn how to understand how wealth is created, learn how this can increase their deposit base in their bank, and learn how they can attract more customers. Don't go to meet customers and tell the customers, come and open an account with me. Show the customers how to make the money. They will, of necessity, put the money in your bank at the end of the day.
Trust me, left for me, we should continue rolling. We should continue schooling people, especially the banking institution, those who work there, to know more and do more. Because I think a man will only give the
what
most
he
to which he knows.
Yes.
So if we ask of patriotic bankers, patriotic people who are giving it, I mean, the life wire of every country rests in its economy.
Yeah.
So if we're discussing economy today, we're discussing how to move forward, and our banking systems are still operating in yesteryears, then I wonder what our future is. But thank God that we have persons like you who are pointing the way forward, and your school is there, of course, to lecture these guys. We hope that we'll have you next time to continue this discourse yet again on another issue as it relates to wealth. Thank you so much for coming, sir.
Thank you for
having me. It's always a pleasure to have you. It's been the Patriot here on television Nigerian, and my guest still has one payoff line for you. So,
the truth about it is that government needs to do a rethinking about our financial system and ensure that the regulators are doing something to correct the anomalies. They see the records in the bank. They know what the lending is doing. They know what assets the banks have. They know the liquidity situation in the banking industry today. Let's correct it. The legal system, let's do something about the legal system to reduce the time it takes to get judgment when you actually get mortgages presented to the law court. The process of getting CFO and all that should also be looked at.
That's one too.
Banks should abandon collateralized banking or complement collateralized banking with transactional banking. For the individuals that are not banking, you need to approach banks to improve your business, because the more credit you get, the better the returns you get at the end of the day.
All right, those who have ears, they say let them hear, but this one you really need to hear for us to move forward as a nation. It's been Eva Onomohu Chinedu. Thanks again for coming, sir.
Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you.